Okay, why don't we get started? This is the ArcGIS Enterprise on Amazon Web Services at 10.5 presentation. So we're going to talk about a lot about Amazon, a lot about ArcGIS Enterprise. My name is David Cordes, and my co-presenter is Cherry Lynn. We both work on the development team for this area of the product. Before we begin, I just want to make a few announcements. One of the things I see people a lot of times trying to take pictures of every slide. I just want to let you know that I've already shared the slide. I've given it this short bit.ly link so that, if you wanted to write it down or you want to take a picture of it, these slides are online now. I'm presenting from the same location. So feel free to take that link down so you can spend more time paying attention to the slides instead of trying to write it down. We also have contacts, both Cherry and my emails up there. I also want to make a mention that we have a really good relationship with Amazon. They come out to our campus all the time. They're giving us technical advice. We can get their feedback on stuff. We just have a really great relationship. Amazon on their part also has some great expertise. They have a geospatial lead, Mark Corver. He's here, but he's got to run in just a second. But he's kindly brought some business cards. At the end, you can come up and get my business cards and get Mark's business cards. We would be happy to work with you on your implementations. I think a lot of times people come to a conference and they feel like, well, I got all this great information. It's a fire hose effect. I'm hoping that this is not the end of our conversation. We want to work with you. So if you guys go back and you're like, I didn't quite get this slide, feel free to send us an email. We know there's a lot of information here. The other thing is some of you guys are doing really great stuff already on Amazon. If you want to share that with us, let us know. We're always looking. Our marketing department, they're always interested in writing up success stories, of course. But I'm also just interested to know what works so I can share it with other customers. So if you have some great things that are working, come up afterwards, find us on the island, or just shoot us an email. We would love to hear from you. Now, before we begin, in earnest, I want to know a little bit about you guys. And I'm sorry I had to turn the lights low. The projectors, they're very close range, and so they can't be very bright. So I want to make sure you can see the slides. The first thing I wanted to ask is how many of you guys are using Amazon? Obviously, you're all interested in Amazon, or are going to be using it probably in the near future or thinking about it. But how many are actually using it today? Yeah, that's kind of what I expected. Now, how many of you are going to use it this year? Maybe you haven't started using it, but you are going to be using it this year. Okay, good. I think the next thing I wanted to know was, what's your role in your organization? So, and you guys may raise your hand multiple times on this, but how many of you guys would describe yourselves as a developer? You write code principally. Yeah, okay. How many people also have an IT role or a DevOps role? Yep. How many of you would describe yourself also as a GIS analyst, like you're doing, okay. And how many of you also have some kind of management or supervisory capability or responsibility? I commented on the last session that I did, and I think you guys all deserve a pay raise, don't you think? You guys are doing so many things, it's amazing. I know we're humbled by it, and one of the things that we want to show you this session today is how we can make your lives easier, because clearly you're having to split your time with so many different duties. So we're going to hopefully make some of the IT aspects of the deployment in the cloud a lot easier and show you how you can do that. I guess the other thing I wanted to find out is, you guys are using the cloud. I'm just kind of curious. We always try to get a sense of what's the motivating factor, because we want to make the design decisions in our software appropriately. And feel free again to raise your hand on more of one of these. But how many would you say, like, one of your top one or two reasons for using the cloud is cost, like it's a financial decision? Okay. How many of you would say, no, it's maybe a technical capability thing, like you can just do more in the cloud than you can do on premises? Okay. How many of you are maybe now getting into some of the technical capabilities are really interested in that high availability aspect of it? Like, I get the high availability. How about the scalability aspect? Okay. This is really interesting. Well, thank you. It's really good to know what you guys are interested in, and hopefully we're going to be talking about a lot of those things that you already talked about. And one final thing, I don't have this question on here. How many of you already have used the cloud builder for Amazon that Esri produces? How many of you used our CloudFormation templates already that we produce? Okay, some of you guys, we're going to find some neat stuff today because we're going to be covering both. We're going to be covering the CloudFormation. Now, before we get started, I just want to talk about, make sure we're all using the same terminology. Because when you talk about the cloud, it's such an overused term today. You know, my mom talks about the cloud, and she's talking about Facebook. You know, I'll talk about the cloud with Cherry, and we're talking about Amazon. Can talk with another person, they're talking a completely different perspective. And then even if you talk to technical people, there's platform as a service, software as a service. You know, what we're going to be talking about today is infrastructure as a service. So for the rest of this session, when we say either of us says cloud, we're really talking about infrastructure as a service. And what we mean there is that your machines, they're not running in your building, they're not running in your data center, they're running somewhere else. That's what we're really talking about. Obviously in this case, we're talking about even they're running on Amazon's data centers. Now, one of the things that gets a lot of confusion is we clearly have very special support for Amazon and Azure, but people say, well, do you support other clouds? And the answer is absolutely. I mean, we certainly support all the clouds. We support Rackspace, we support the IBM Cloud, all of you, and you can pick your cloud and we support it. But what does that mean by we support it? It means basically, we already support our software in your environment, so why would some other environment, our software not work? We may not take advantage of Alioun's or IBM Cloud's special cloud features, but we will work there. And our support staff will know how to troubleshoot our software there, but they will not be experts on those environments, if that makes any sense. But with Azure and Amazon, you will get some expertise from our support staff. We get enough customers that they will have some expertise in Amazon and Azure. We also provide special tooling for these environments. It's not that it's harder to use the other clouds, it's easier to use Amazon and Azure. And it's even easier to use Amazon and Azure, I think, than using our software on premises, because we can write tooling to take advantage of the APIs that Amazon provides to make that deployment so much easier. We have no way to automate your environment to spin up VMs in your environment because it's your IT staff. You usually have to go talk to somebody. That person's going to spin up a VM for you and then give it back to you. With Amazon, there's nobody to talk to. It's an API. So we can create special tooling and give you a great experience. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is ArcGIS Enterprise. How many of, two questions. How many of you actually heard the term ArcGIS Enterprise at this Dev Summit? Okay, good. Now, how many of you, and this is another question, feel like you understand what it really, really means? Good, good. The message is getting out. You must have gone to our What's New session or a road ahead, so I touched upon it at the plenary. I want to go into a little bit so that we all understand, at least at a conceptual level, what it means. So I'm going to give you some conceptual overviews. They're not network diagrams. They're not necessarily deployment things, but they're going to conceptually talk about what we mean when we talk about ArcGIS Enterprise. At the heart of it, at least from the cloud perspective, and even on premises, I think, is this base deployment. I'm going to talk about that on the next slide. Once you have your base deployment, you're then open to other types of deployments. GeoAnalytics, GeoEvent, Image Server, and GIS Server. And I'll talk about each of those in turn as well, and how they build off of the base deployment. You know, in some ways, you know, ArcGIS Enterprise is a marketing and a branding thing, but it's also a technical thing. You know, one of the things that we've talked about on the team is we want to help you, the users, deploy our software in the way that's going to lead you to the most success. One of the things that we saw in the past is that people would get a single ArcGIS server machine and they would overload it. Poor machine would just, they have an ArcGIS server on, they had image services, maybe they put GeoEvent on there. I mean, it was just, you know, they just put a bunch of things and there was performance issues because they're all competing. What we said, no, this was not a best practice. And what we wanted to do was say, let's define the software and the deployment patterns in a way that's going to lead to customer success. So a lot of what you're going to see here is based on feedback of what we know works, because a lot of these components like Image Server and GeoEvent Server, they've pre-existed. We've had them for years. And this is what we have found works. Now, when we're talking about the base deployment, we're talking primarily about giving you portal capabilities. Now, we introduced ArcGIS Online 5 years now. It's hard to believe it's been around that long, at least from my perspective. We introduced ArcGIS Online, and people said, that's awesome, I want it on premises. So we introduced Portal. And what do they want? They wanted the ability to be able to share content, they wanted to be able to collaborate on content, they wanted to be able to create apps really easily through a wizard experience. And they wanted to be able to say, well, I want to take some of that data and serve it out live. Like I uploaded that shapefile, and I now want to drop it on a web map. And behind the scenes, that was turned into a feature service. But in order to power that on premises, we needed to include a server. Server's really good at serving out data, right? That's what it does. So at first we just said you have an ArcGIS server. Then we came up with the term hosting server. And this is really an ArcGIS server that's providing capabilities to the portal. This server is not, you can put more stuff on it. You can put your map services on it. You can put geocode services on it. You can do a lot with it. But its main purpose when used as a hosting server in your base deployment is to provide you access to results that you've gotten from your analysis. Be able to serve out data that the users have uploaded. That is what the ArcGIS server is for. Now we needed a place to store that. So we created the ArcGIS data store. We wanted something that was scalable, something that was fast. And so you can store your content. So you've uploaded that shapefile and you want to serve it out through feature services in your hosting server. That shapefile gets put into the ArcGIS data store, which has 3 flavors: a relational, tile, and spatiotemporal. And this consists of your base deployment. This can be all on one machine, or it can be exploded into multiple machines, like 2 or 3 machines. Now once you have that base deployment, it now empowers you to go add more stuff. You can add your GeoAnalytics deployment now. Now, how many of you feel like you understand, I mean, at least know what conceptually GeoAnalytics is? A little bit, yeah? I mean, certainly it's analytical, and while everybody, I saw how many people raise their hands on GIS analysis, you understand analysis. What differentiates it, I think, from our analysis in the past is its multi-threaded analysis. Now, multi-threaded, we're in the Dev Summit, so I feel pretty comfortable saying that, but what I really mean is you can have multiple workers all working on the same job. You take this job that you need that might normally take 5 hours, you can divide it up into chunks and give it to a bunch of different workers, 50 workers, and they will do it in 1/50th the time. So you can divvy up work. And to me, that's what it's all about. And GeoAnalytics is really powerful. But it's not necessarily a different piece of software. It's just ArcGIS server with a different license. Same bits, same binaries, but when you have the license, it unlocks those capabilities. Now, for it to work, people say, well, why do you need a base deployment? I think it's a good question, and it has a good answer, of course, too. GeoAnalytics depends on your base deployment for several things. One of the things, if you've been a long-time user, use our catalog, you probably have more than one server in your environment, and you have these connections. You have 15 connections to ArcGIS servers all through your organization. You're like, which one is it? It's very complicated, right? When we redesigned Pro, when we want to simplify this experience, we want to say Pro, it's going to connect to your ArcGIS Online, it's going to connect to your portal, and then it's just going to know about all your other servers. And that's one of the things that we've been able to do. With GeoAnalytics, it's registered with your portal. When Pro or other clients connect to your portal, they know where your GeoAnalytics server is. You're not going to have to put in a GeoAnalytics server URL. So you get this automatic discovery, this nicer experience, because you guys have so many other things you're doing. Now the other thing it does is the hosting server serves out the results. You don't want, if your GeoAnalytics server is going to be doing this heavy crunching, you don't necessarily also want it to be serving out data. So we offload that. We put that in the hosting server. The hosting server is going to serve out the data, or the results from your processing, where the GeoAnalytics is going to do that heavy lifting, doing that analysis. And then the data store is where it's going to store those results. We have the spatiotemporal data store. It can scale very well to large amounts of data, and it can perform very fast. And so that is going to be where the GeoAnalytics server is going to put the data. The next deployment is GeoEvent. Now GeoEvent's been around a while. I'm just going to say it handles real-time data. It can process and act on it. It can also store it and archive it. So when you use GeoEvent, you automatically are going to, when you use it with a portal, you'll authenticate with portal and you'll get a single sign-on experience. It's really important for us that when you go into an app, you're like, I'm being prompted for logins and I don't want to be prompted a bunch of times. It's confusing. Which login is this for? I don't know what. Just if you're using most of our apps, you're going to get a single sign-on experience if you're using our base deployment. So that goes true for GeoEvent. Now, the hosting server can then serve out your archive data. So you're getting this real-time data from whatever these sensors are that are running, maybe traffic speeds on your freeway, whatever. You might want to go look at it, just display it, visualize it. The hosting server will help you with that. And then finally, the data store will hold that spatial temporal data store information. So the GeoEvent can handle hundreds of events per second, and it can still put that in the spatial temporal data store, archive it, so that it's available for future analysis. And GeoAnalytics and GeoEvent are very natural complementary technologies. One of them handles incoming high volume data, the other can process by splitting up the work, that high volume and large amounts of data. The image server deployment, well, we've all known what image server is for years. It does your image serving and your raster functions on that data. Now at 10.5, of course, we're very excited because we've added raster analytics, which is the same concept as GeoAnalytics. I can have multiple workers work on one problem, one job, one set of analysis. They can divide up the work, and then they can come up with an answer in a fraction of the time it would have taken one worker to do it. So that is what you get when you get image server deployments. And again, you're going to work with your base deployment. You will use the portal for authentication and serve it there. And there's also a raster data store that works with your image server deployment as well. Then finally, there's the GIS server deployment. This is what I would consider the traditional thing. You had ArcGIS server. I wanted to publish the map services. We worked really hard on creating these map documents. We want to share them out with our colleagues and our applications. It also included geocoding, geoprocessing, maybe network services. All these things were things that you did with ArcGIS server. Kind of a general purpose, does a lot of things type server. What we've said is that, this is still important. This is still the bread and butter of what Esri does. But we don't necessarily want to put it on the same machine as your GeoAnalytics or your GeoEvent. Those things are handling high volume stuff. Same thing's true with image. So we separated that out. You still can do GIS server, and it works really well with the GIS server deployment because of the discovery mechanisms. Portal is great for finding content. I don't know how many of you have started using Portal, but I really encourage you to do that. I've talked to some customers who, and they've been longtime users, they've been great users, and they're used to their developers going to REST endpoints and looking for services that are useful for them. But that REST endpoint, that services directory we call it, it's a browse experience. And when those customers had 5 services, it was no problem for those developers. But they've been very successful. They now have 150 services, and those developers don't want to go browsing and reading details on a REST endpoint. They want to be able to search, say, I want this data, I want hydrology data for the Southwest. And I just don't want to have to click through 15 different services to try find which one of your data is hydrology for the Southwest. So Portal is a great way of discovering content. And when you buddy it up with a portal, you get that automatic sharing, you have tags, you have descriptions, you have metadata, all this stuff that helps people find that. Now this was just conceptual. I mean, we can, and we are doing sessions that talk about ArcGIS Enterprise at a very implementation level. But we wanted to talk about at least the conceptual level. Now, none of this is to describe how you configure it. There's high availability configurations, you can scale this out, and I'm not drawing a bunch of boxes to show that you can scale it out, but that's clearly going to be possible. And what we'll find out is on the Amazon cloud, it's fairly easy to do that. Cherry will be talking about those capabilities and how you do them. And I hope by the end of this, you'll say, if I had to do this by hand, on premises, this would have taken me 3 weeks. But in the cloud, I can do that in 3 hours. And it's me, and probably most of the time, it's you spending 30 minutes or 3 minutes, depending on your familiarity with the cloud, to actually launch it. And the other 2.5 hours are just the cloud doing its stuff. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Cherry.
Thank you, David. David talked about this general about a cloud. Let's focus on Amazon. We talk about all these great architecture, and then we'll talk about how we do it and how we deploy it, how we use CloudFormation. And then, that's the deployment we'll talk about. We also spend a lot of time and focus on how to use the native cloud technology to make our stuff work better there. I'll have a session like high availability and scalability. Basically use the cloud features, native Amazon cloud features to make ArcGIS Enterprise work better there. First, we'll take a look at deploying ArcGIS Enterprise on AWS. A few of you just raise your hand and you use our Cloud Builder before. The Cloud Builder is still around. It's still a simple tool, quick start for only ArcGIS Server. Because back in the days, when we deploy ArcGIS Server in Amazon, we didn't feel at that time Amazon's technology is good enough to quickly help our customer to deploy it. But over the time, especially when we come to the ArcGIS Enterprise architecture, Amazon also caught up. They have this CloudFormation, which is kind of like their native cloud builder, which is more native to their technology and quickly connect with other services, and it is very powerful. So we switched to the CloudFormation and use CloudFormation to support our enterprise architecture. So today, when you start with ArcGIS Enterprise, you start with using our CloudFormation template. So now let's go over it and see how that works. First, how it got started. A lot of you, you are very familiar with Amazon already. How do you start with Esri stuff on Amazon? First, you need an Amazon account, right? And then you still get the authorization files from Esri. So you still pay Esri for this software. And what other thing you need is you need your domain name for your application, which is a requirement of ArcGIS Enterprise. Wherever you deploy, Azure, Amazon, or on-premise, you require that. And you need your certificate for your domain. After you get these three things, you are ready to go. We'll talk a little bit more detail how you do with this domain and how you get your certificate. But then let's take a quick look first how this CloudFormation works, and then we'll talk a little bit more details. So next, I'll do a quick demo how you deploy ArcGIS Enterprise in using CloudFormation. What I opened here is, this is our Amazon doc. In this Amazon documentation, we talk details how you use our, how you do different things. And in this documentation, they have our sample templates. In this doc, it have all the templates for different architecture like David generally introduced earlier. For example, you have this base ArcGIS Enterprise architecture. You can have a single machine, have all your enterprise on one machine. Or you want high availability, you want to put them in two machines to form a high availability portal, server, and a data store. We put the two machines here because on-premise, you probably put a portal in one machine, server in one machine, they all spread out. But that's usually because of the machine resources that are probably not good enough. You don't have good enough machine to support all the software on one machine. But in the cloud, right, you have really good machines, very beefy machines. You could put them all together, which is easier to manage. So we put this architecture there too for high availability requirements. And we also have, like David mentioned, all those server architectures, general ArcGIS server and the image server, GeoAnalytics server, GeoEvent server. All of these server architectures, the templates are here too. And they'll have templates for regular regions and for GovCloud regions. Next, what I want to do is, let's say I want to quickly deploy a base ArcGIS Enterprise. I don't really care about high availability, just on one machine, quick start. What do I do that? First, you just click on launch. Let's say I picked Windows. And then it will take you to your Amazon console, this CloudFormation console. And what it does is, it asks you some questions. For example, where you want to deploy it, which VPC you want to deploy it to. Let me pick this one. And which subnet you want it to, what's your domain, right? Like say my domain is cherry.webjstesting.net. And this is the machine's IP, where your domain is going to mapping it to. I have it here. Where is it? This is my EIP number. I'll just put it, you get it from your console, your elastic IP's number. And then ask you how big your machine to be, your instance type. This is the spatial temporal data store. In my case, if I don't want it, I just say that the number is 0, I don't want it. And then you can define the size of your C drive and D drive. And the key pair, you probably already know, you use that to access your machine. And this is the deployment bucket, S3 bucket. I put my server license file, my portal license file, server license file, my server dot, and my portal, you see. And I want my file system quickly. We'll explain a little bit more what that means later. And then what's your site username, password, right? After you deploy your base enterprise. And your RAID account is all your software running on Windows. What account you want it to be run as, the password. That's mine, give a password. And then this is your certificate file earlier, so you need to obtain it earlier. What's my card? Card.webjs testing.net.pfx. It takes a PFX format and the password to that certificate. Then that's all the information collected you decide to take, and you agree with whatever they say, and then go create. That's all. That's how the process is. And then this is something I created earlier. And then after you create this deployment, you'll see they have an event tag. Will show you what happened, what resource it created, and then the output. Like this is my deployment I created earlier. This is ready to go. You are ready to do your GIS work. This is, all the CloudFormation have exactly the same workflow as I showed you. They just ask different questions according to the different architecture that you want to pick. Ask you some questions. That's exactly the same user interface you see. Now you have a general concept how this deployment work. You use CloudFormation, pick the exact architecture you want and answer those parameters. You got your deployment. Now we look a little bit more detail. Some of the questions. What are they asking you? What that means? First, all these CloudFormation templates at the 10.5 use our 10.5 Esri army. 10.4 use 4 army. All these armies will hook up with our CloudFormation template. These armies, I think starting at I forgot the 10.4, 10.4.1, they are in the Amazon marketplace. They are public army now. As long as you have Amazon account, you have access to these armies. You don't need to contact Esri anymore. If you use our army for a while, before you have to contact Esri support customer service to get access, but now they are public. And you need to accept terms which is what Amazon required. Because you won't be able to deploy and you'll see pretty clear error message. What that means is just you have to agree whatever their agreement are. And these armies, a little bit different from others, bring your own license. You got a license from Esri, right? You already paid Esri for the license. So you don't extra cost anymore. Some of the market armies, you pay extra for the software you are using on top of that. You pay Amazon. In these armies, you only pay the Amazon resources, the instance types, the storage. There's no extra cost because you already paid Esri. You got a license from Esri. We also support GovCloud, as you see earlier, but these GovCloud armies still private armies. You have to contact Esri professional service because they have some clearance requirement, so you need to do that. And we mentioned about the certificate and the license and the domain. Why do you need a domain, right? Because ArcGIS Enterprise requires domain for your application to work. And what about the certificate too? Usually your IT administrator will take care of this for you. You probably have a domain for your organization, and you. Go ahead. Sorry. This was my earlier, I don't know if you see this slide. Sorry about that. This slide was basically, this is the Esri armies, the public armies in the regular regions, and the GovCloud army, you just need to contact Esri Professional Service to get that. And we were talking about the certificate and domains. Actually, we got a lot of questions about that. Why do you need this? What do I do with it? You need it because ArcGIS Enterprise requires it. IT usually gets your domain, get your IT, your certificate, but you can also get it from Amazon as well. Amazon have this domain service, the Route 53 service. They also have the certificate service. They have a certificate manager. So if you want, that's the WebGIS testing.net I showed you earlier. That's the domain actually I purchased from Amazon. It's $11 a year. And then we got a certificate from our IT department. You can do that with Amazon as well. They have this kind of service. And after you get a certificate, we were asked for, depends on the architecture you are doing. Some of the architecture, like the one I just showed you earlier, I only have one machine. For that one machine, that's I don't need a load balancer because everything goes to that one machine. So in this time, that the certificate is deployed to that web server running on that machine. In that case, we ask you to put your domain in the Esri bucket where CloudFormation Template can quickly access. Some other architecture, like server architecture, the raster analytics, you have 11, 10 machines behind the load balancer. In this case, we put the certificate into the load balancer. And then Amazon have this nice certificate manager. You load to their certificate manager. They give you an ARN number, and we use that number to deploy your architecture. So you need to do these two cases pending the architecture you are doing. And the license file we just put in the Esri bucket, the CloudFormation will go to. So when you go through those CloudFormation workflows, you see these questions. That's what they mean. And then you use our CloudFormation template to quickly deploy all these architectures. These are the chart I got from our documentation. These are the architecture you go. Like for this, for the right one on the right, there's a server architecture. So that's a load balancer in front. And the one on the left, that's the high available web GIS, actually it's enterprise deployment. So depending on the architecture you pick, that's the questions you answer. And then after your deployment, you need to make sure your domains are properly mapped, the CNAME mapping. In your organization, you probably also have IT take control over this. But with Amazon Route 53, you can take over that as well. This is the one I purchased, WebGIS.net. I have a wildcard certificate for it. Actually, I have a lot of subdomains for it that format testing for all different architectures, and I can do the mapping myself. So this is very convenient to use, something you can, very helpful in your deployment as well. And we also have in the same documentation, we also have a way for you to automate this deployment. You don't need to go through the Amazon's CloudFormation GUI. We provide some sample Python and Powershell script to automate this deployment. Amazon have a lot of different SDKs, and we provide some samples from Python and PowerShell. These are the scripts that we use internally. What I going to demo you is the script I use myself, and our other team use Python. These are the sample things we use. So you don't really need to go through the GUI. I know some of you guys like to automate this workflow as well. So next, I'll just quickly show you my PowerShell script. How do I use that to deploy? Is it too small? Can you see? This is my PowerShell script. You can see this already. This is basically all those questions that earlier in the CloudFormation template that they were asking you. This is all the parameters, and then this is my values. You got the concept. This is this is what I downloaded from our sample PowerShell script and then change it to parameters to my account. And then all you need to do is just need to run. This is a PowerShell script. You can run, click on this, and we'll just go, we'll create it for you. This is very convenient, you know, you can automate it. You can, and sometimes if you make a mistake, run as password, this is, you know, okay. You can change, like this one, right? They remind me that this template require run as password. I don't know if you can see, it's pretty difficult to see. I didn't put it in there, so they remind me. So what I need to do is I just go back here and yeah, doesn't, and then give the run as a password, add it to it and run again. This is how you automatically run this script. That's how you automate it. Let me see, this is run as user password. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, and then okay, I give a password that didn't meet the system requirement. You know, they will quickly tell you what you did wrong and how you could write it. You correct it and you run it, it will go. These are some of other this is my, in different regions, different, for different template, different architectures. So in my testing, this is very convenient to automate this test. Now we talk about, you know, how you deploy these different architectures. Behind this architecture, you know, we put a lot of effort to use native Amazon technology. Next, I'll put this in this session, high availability and scalability. What we did at 10.5 to make our ArcGIS Enterprise more native in the cloud. You know, the first thing we did, you know, a lot of us, we care about high availability. And Amazon have these cloud store that's very nice services, cloud storage services. Like in this architecture I showed, right? At 10.4 and 10.5, 10.4.1, 10.5, we make our ArcGIS server, make our config store in the DynamoDB in Amazon. This is a Amazon service which provide high availability to the storage. And we also put portal content in Esri. So we move these very important configurations to the Amazon native storage. And another thing, you're probably familiar with our WebGIS DR. WebGIS DR is a tool that you can back up all your contents in this, your WebGIS, ArcGIS Enterprise deployment. Your security, your users, your services, everything you published. When we do that WebGIS DR in Amazon, we also make the backup to S3. So you have everything in the Amazon, in the cloud. When you do the backup, all your configurations in the cloud. Another thing is the server directories, right? Server directory is still on this file server that we showed it there. But Amazon have this auto recover service. What it does is, when your machine, when you configure this machine with this service, when this machine is down, this instance is down, Amazon can recover to the moment it went down. So it takes about the time to start a new machine, but that's about the time you lose. But it recovered to the previous before it went down the stage into the same zone, same availability zone. If the same zone is down, then it cannot recover, but that's pretty rare, So this auto recover service is really nice. And during these 5 minutes, during this time, your ArcGIS server still function, but it's kind of like a read-only mode because you cannot start, the service directory is not there. But when this directory coming back, this instance come back, your site continue to work, function. In our internal testing, when we have this feature, every once in a while we get an email from Amazon saying this machine's done, we auto recovered it for you. Actually, in our testing, we didn't quite feel that. We feel like our site is still performing pretty good. This is one pretty good, nice architecture service from Amazon. Not only we did it for this server directories, we also did it for the machine that has portal data store, because we only have 2 machines, right? It's not really auto scaling thing, and we put this feature on there too. So these machines can recover to exactly before it went down. Well, that's what Amazon promised. And for ArcGIS Server, the scalability part, what we did, we know ArcGIS Server can scale up. You can have a lot of machines to this site. Another thing we did is we make this join site command, make it more robust, make it a faster scale. You can have multi-machines join simultaneously. This feature is very transparent to you. What you don't really see anything change. We just implement it back end. You'll notice that it scale up faster. And for the database side, we support this Amazon RDS, the database they manage, they provide high availability. We support Postgres, and we also support SQL Server RDS. We did this in the Cloud Builder. We also put it in the CloudFormation template as well. So in the CloudFormation template earlier, one night demo, it asks you, in the server architecture, it will ask you, do you want post the database engine? You can either pick none, means you don't want any, or you want to pick Postgres or SQL Server. If you pick any of that, we just make it an enterprise geodatabase and register to your site. Another feature that we did it at 10.5, right? We support caching against S3. This is actually a feature that we really take users' feedback. We have this request, and we implemented this. This is available at 10.5 on Windows. Ubuntu will be next, will be coming soon. And keep in mind, though, it's only serve cache. It doesn't manage cache. It doesn't create cache. So you still need to cook your cache and put in S3. And then it will serve out the caching from S3. The good thing about S3 is highly available and it's highly scalable, right? You can have pretty big cache there and serve out. The performance, we did the performance testing. That's one thing users really care. When you put a cache in S3, how's the performance? We did our performance testing. It is not as fast as EBS volume, of course, because it's native network share, but it's relatively, about the same as ArcGIS Online's caching speed. If you are happy with ArcGIS Online's caching speed, and this is probably fine for you as well. Some tricks, right? You can enable VPC endpoint because all your machines in the VPC endpoint for S3. Amazon has pretty clear doc about this. Then it will enable the communication between S3 and your machines internal. It's free, they don't charge you. Only when you get outside Amazon to charge you, and also it's a lot faster. So that's some of you might want to do if you want to use this feature. What I put raster analytics is, some of you probably do a lot of raster things, and then our raster team do a lot of work with Amazon S3 doing cache. You can talk to them as well. They did very good work there, and it have pretty good performance. And raster is huge, or raster data is huge. S3 is a pretty good option. And what I put in the screenshot here is in ArcGIS Server Manager at 10.5. You'll see in the data store items, there's an option is to add a cloud storage. You can add Azure blob, you can add S3, and then if you enable the register as a cache directory, then you can use this directory as a cache folder to serve out cache, not manage yet. And just some other thing we'd like to share with you is, another high availability feature Amazon has is EFS, right? They just announced the general availability last year. This EFS is their high available elastic file system. It's high available, is elastic. It's a file system. Not like S3, you need to do some extra work to make it work with server. This is just a file system, work just like that. But the trade-off is, it's Linux only. They are saying Windows coming soon, and we are working with them. As soon as they are in private beta, we'll try to test it. But right now, it's Linux only. And there's a performance trade-off. We tested the caching again. In our testing, it's close to S3. But compared to S3, first is the price. You might want to, see how much it. S3 is they charge you a little bit money for storage, They also charge you when you use it, inside out the Amazon. For EFS, they just charge you for the storage, but it's a lot more than S3. So it depends how you use it. We evaluate your use case. That might be an option for you. If you want scalability, because it looks big, looks really huge, and want easy to handle, just a file system, but you can sacrifice some performance, then maybe this is another option for you. Just this is what in our testing as well. And well, that's kind of summarize what we're going to present today. And this is some of the documentation, some of the resources. All this demo, when we show you all those CloudFormation templates, all those AMI links, how do you accept the terms, these are all coming on our doc. You just need to go to our online documentation. It has all the links from there. And with that, we'll take the question next, but please fill in the survey. Tell us, what you think. Like, for example, the S3 caching, that's really coming from our user. And tell us what else you like to hear, like to know, what we can improve on our implementation. With that, we'll take some questions. Go ahead.
So with the scalability where you might automate deploying multiple machines, how do you handle licensing that if you don't know how many machines you might scale to?
You want to take that?
Yeah, so the question for those who couldn't hear was, with scalability, how do you handle the licensing then? How do I make sure that my licensing covers that? I mean, there's two ways to go about it. One of the ways, we have a couple different licensing options. I don't want to get too much into that because that's better conversation with your account manager. But there's different types of, one is you might need to scale up just for a period of time. Like you might be doing some kind of big analysis for a month, or you need to generate cash and you need some extra machines. We have term licenses, so you can get them for a period of a month, 2 months, 3 months, something like that. So you can say, I'm going to need these machines, but I'm only going to need them for a short period of time. That's one of our options. We also have, you can obviously purchase, more licenses than you need. We would love that. By the peak. The other thing, though, is of course we have enterprise license agreements. With enterprise license agreements, what we do is it's more kind of a we work with your organization over a period of time. You're not necessarily fixed to a number of licenses, and it's kind of custom negotiated your workflows. So you would say, yeah, during our ELA negotiation, we're going to be doing some of this. It's going to peak up here, it's going to be over here, and then the account manager will say, well, then based on your workflow, this is what we normally charge, and they would work out an agreement with you in that case. Well, the next question that a lot of people ask is, well, do you have hourly pricing? And we do not at this point. We're looking at that. It's an experimental thing. I just saw somebody's hand go down immediately after that, so I think that was the question. What other questions? Yeah, back there. I couldn't hear you, sorry. Yeah, that's a very good point. The point was that not all Amazon services are available in every region. Like we talked about EFS, the Elastic File System, that is not available in every region. You would have to check to make sure that capability is available in your region. In the US East 1, US West 1, US West 2, they're pretty up to date. US West 1, Northern California tends to lag. US East 2, I think, is getting a lot of the new stuff. But then some of the international regions also tend to lag, and you wait for those capabilities. GovCloud tends to lag as well. So definitely check to make sure these capabilities are available in your region. Yeah, back.
So the question is, when your system is under load, you can automatically scale up. What about scaling down? Actually, this is the Amazon feature. We put these machines in the Amazon auto scaling group, and then we say, let's say when your all the CPUs over 80%, scale up, adding more machines, one more. And then if it's under 80%, under 20%, get rid of the machines. Getting rid of machines that controlled by Amazon auto scaling group, and the machines inside this group is identical, so it shouldn't matter which machine is cutting down. That's how. The currently only.
Repeat the question.
Oh, sorry. The question is, I have machines in the in this auto scaling group, and I probably have all the machine list. Now the machine is gone. How do I clean these machines, right? And we current auto scaling is only with ArcGIS Server, right? Portal you only have 2 machines. Data store the 2 machines. No scaling there. That's a pretty fixed number. With ArcGIS Server. That's a good question. We currently do not clean it from the config store. The list, you see them, but ArcGIS Server functions without them. Even though if you couldn't ping them, ArcGIS still works. But with when you stop restart, we clean it. But at usual run, we don't clean it. But it shouldn't affect your functionality.
Yeah. ArcGIS Server has a model. Our architectural model is a peer-to-peer model. And so if one of the peers disappears, we just let the operation go by, and we make a note that if that machine ever comes back, it needs to update itself and resync. And so it just handles itself. In the case of these Amazon machines, they're never coming back. They've been destroyed. So it doesn't have an impact on the administration or publishing or other operations of your server. That was something we specifically designed at 10.1 to make sure that we didn't have problems like that. The work that we did at 10.5 that Cherry was mentioning is when you on Amazon, it's very easy to say, create 20 machines all at once, all join the site at once. And they're all competing, and only one machine could do that join operation, which took 2 to 3 minutes at a time, and so it would take 30 minutes to get those 10 machines up. We did some optimizations with our locking so that you could get those 10 machines to join in like 5 minutes or instead of 30 minutes. And that was where we had problems when we spun up. It was a timing thing. Like, couldn't they be up faster? And so we've optimized that. Yeah?
So I had a CloudFormation highly available server in 10.4.1, and when we have nodes spin up and then they would terminate, when someone would go to publish next, and those were still in the config store, we would get an error. And the service would still publish, but you would get that warning. Is that still the case with 10.5, or did you get that and then go in and delete the node within the manager?
So I can talk about that. The observation is that 10.4.1 with the highly available server and lots of machines, sometimes the machines would disappear. When you published, in the logs you would get a warning message saying, I didn't publish to this machine because it wasn't available. What we do with those is there are some situations where the software doesn't know if it's a serious problem or if it's expected. And so we log those as warnings because we know that you, the human, know a lot more than we do. So we're not sure if that machine's absence is due to auto-scaling it down or no. That machine's still there, but it's turned off and you don't know about it. So what we try to do is alert you on the warning to say, listen, that is something that might be, you should look into. Now you probably said, immediately, I know that machine's gone, it's never coming back. And in that situation, you do have to say, delete the machine from the site by pressing the little X on it in the manager, because you know it's never coming back. But with ArcGIS Server, we want to do automate as much as possible, but we want to err on the side of caution. Because if we delete that machine from the site automatically, if it did come back because it was just rebooting or something, we wouldn't let it join back in again. Once you delete it, that machine's not allowed to come back in without administrative credentials doing the join site. So we've erred on the side of caution because we know there's not a downside other than those warning messages. So we leave that still for a human to decide whether that's a real problem or not. Yep.
If you deploy a GIS enterprise site using these tools, what's the future look like for you when you need to install a new version? Like, you go install 10.5 right now, 10.5 comes out. Is that a manual process now still, like it would be, or do you manually install it?
So the question is, what happens when I upgrade, right? I have my site. When I upgrade, what's going to happen? Right now, that is a manual process. We treat it like a customization. You might do other things on your machine too that we don't really know what you did. So we don't do the automatic upgrade. So right now, our suggestions, depends how complicated your site is. You may want to do a just in-place upgrade like the on-premise, and then for some user, when they move to a different area, if it's easier, you create a new one and recreate your application. But right now, it's a manual process. Yes.
But that's something we are thinking about. Hard problem to solve, but we want to make it as automated as possible. But yeah. Yeah, over there in the corner. Sorry.
Do you have a template that includes SQL Server?
Question is, do you have a template to create a SQL Server? If I understand right, we have that template to create a geodatabase against SQL Server RDS. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Individual AWS that their own self-contained enterprise geodatabase.
Okay. We don't have a template to create that, but we have an image that has a SQL Server on it. It's coming from the Amazon's SQL Server image, and we put our stuff on it. But we try to encourage people to use their SQL Server RDS. So we have a template to use a SQL Server RDS, not a standalone one. Yeah.
All right, why don't we take one last question, and then anybody else who wants to ask a question can come up.
Go ahead.
Are the CloudFormation templates customizable, like editable, so that you can change
Okay.
certain things about them?
The question is if a CloudFormation template customizable. Definitely, I think that's one of the things very flexible about this. We've just put this template out there. It kind of like a block for you. Have a break for you. Like for example, some of our customers, they cannot just use our army directly. They take our army, they run their security whatever on it, they put whatever their application on it. That's the army they have to use. And then they just put that army into our CloudFormation template using that army. That's the most easy one. Some other customers, they add, like what I mentioned, the VPC endpoint automate themselves. So they develop that way themselves. So this user, especially some very powerful users, they have different case and they can just build on top of ours. Yeah.
When Cherry launched it, there was also a view button right next to it, and it would have shown you what the web template looks like, and it's essentially JSON. And it's fairly easy to read, and yeah, we expect a lot of organizations they're like, yeah, automatically I know what this value is going to be, I'm just going to fill it in. And they can add more to it or whatever else they want. With that, if you have any questions, we have our cards up front. If someone could turn on the lights in the back, right back there, that would be helpful. And then we'll hang around to answer all your questions.
We also have this card from Mark on Amazon, so you guys want to take his contact as well.